Hey there, Jordan Chariton live. Status Coup. It is Tuesday, July 5th, 2022. Joined by the real progressive himself with the Unabomber American flag behind him, Steve Grumbine. How you doing, Steve?
I'm doing well, sir. How are you?
I'm okay. Had a nice weekend. Wasn't shot to death, so that's a plus.
Plus.
And yeah, happy to be back. We'll have, by the way, a little announcement later, a little status coup announcement. So stay tuned for that a little bit later. Whole lot to get to. A little bit later, about 40 minutes, we're going to have a guest from Akron, Ohio. If you are unaware, another unarmed black man was assassinated by police. Jayland Walker, 25 years old, who was shot 60 times running away from the police. Yeah, the image and the video is pretty horrific. So we're going to talk to an activist on the ground there as protests have been going on for many nights, and the police are doing what the police do. So we'll be talking to that guest a little bit later. First, smash the like button, by the way, folks. It's the thumbs up button right under the live stream. The more people that press like, the more people that will see this very live stream. Very important. Super chats are welcome. We talked, Steve, you were actually on with me the day the Uvalde school shooting happened. So it happened maybe an hour or two before we came live. Since then, well, let me just say, so far this year, there's been over 300 mass shootings. And over this weekend, obviously, yesterday, there was a mass shooting in Highland Park, Illinois, sniper style, with a 22-year-old who shot from above a building at people. Now it was 6, now a 7th has unfortunately died. But Colin made a couple graphics with the other shootings that happened this weekend, because it was not just one shooting. Colin, if you could show them July 4th in St. Louis. 2 were killed, 3 were wounded. Shooter unknown, St. Louis, Missouri. Then you have Phoenix. 1 was killed, 7 wounded. Shooter unknown, Phoenix, Arizona. Then you have Gary, Indiana, which happened at midnight this morning. 3 killed, 7 wounded. Shooter unknown. Richmond, Virginia, 1 killed, 2 wounded. Shooters Derek Agee, 24 years old. And July 4th, New York City, 3 killed, 24 wounded, various shooters. And that's just the shootings we know of. Obviously, I don't want to stereotype, but obviously there's a lot of shootings that go on in, low-income, poor cities, Chicago, elsewhere. But those are the major ones. That I think there was one also in Wisconsin. I don't know if Dean sent that one. So this is after the bipartisan gun deal that the media, was creaming their pants about. Didn't do anything to address this. Should be noted that the Illinois shooter, this was a suburb of Chicago, about a half hour away, legally purchased his gun. So the problem isn't just illegal guns crossing into borders. It's the legal gun laws we have. We could talk about societal rot, and you and I have spoken about that. But at this point, I mean, I'm not going to lie. My wife and I were going to bed last night, and she's joked with me, try to see if you can get Canadian citizenship, because my grandpa was born in Canada. So technically my father could get Canadian citizenship, and maybe I could sneak my way through Canadian citizenship. But she said, I don't feel safe. I really don't. I mean, there's just chance in life where bad things could happen, wrong place at the wrong time. But this is really beyond wrong place at the wrong time. This is really any given day. It's just whichever maniac has access to guns. If you're there, you could get killed. And it's very scary. And at this point, I tweeted earlier, you and I have talked about this a lot, but there's just colliding calamities, climate, women, and abortion. Now, Supreme Court saying, separation of church and state. Just kidding. Supreme Court gutting the EPA, which was already kind of an agency for business anyway. But all these calamities colliding at once, I've never seen a better time for an Occupy Wall Street 2.0 right outside the Capitol with some economic boycotts. I wish it could be a general strike tomorrow, but you got to crawl before you can walk. Because at this point, you know, they say vote like your lives depend on it. We're not voting our way out of this. Let's just be clear. Even if the Democrats, they're telling you, oh, if you just give us 4 more senators, then Manchin and Sinema would be obsolete. Well, you really want to trust the Democratic Party if you give them 54 senators that they would have enough votes to end the filibuster? You really want to trust that they would do what needs to be done? What needs to be done, and I'm sorry if I'm going to trigger some folks, we got to ban assault weapons. We have to raise the legal purchase age to, in my opinion, 21 at the minimum for all people. And I think we need to put a cap on how many guns people could have. That's just a few things. Then you have to address the economic problems, because a lot of these shootings, not a direct line, but societal rot and economic.
You'll be right back, Kev.
Societal rot and economic misery and economic pressures plays a role in a lot of these shootings. Colin, let's show, for people who haven't seen it, and it's, you know, it's not a pretty picture. Let's show the horrible shooting in Highland Park.
My God, what happened?
It's just the irony of celebrating freedom. How free are you? How free do you feel? And I don't want to hear any more about mental health. This bullshit talking point, mostly from right wingers. Pretty much every country on earth has mental health problems. A lot of them made worse during coronavirus. Okay. You're not going to eradicate mental health. I've said this after every gun shooting. Okay. I've had depression most of my life. In some cases, it got so bad I was hospitalized once. Okay. I didn't pick up a bazooka gun and kill people. Most people with mental illness do not do that. The common denominator is the guns. And, you know, to the person in the chat, I'll give up my 2A when you give up your 1A. How's that deal? Hey, buddy, guy or girl, the Second Amendment doesn't give you access to any gun you want, any high-capacity magazine you want. It doesn't say you can have tanks as a private citizen. The bastardization of the Second Amendment and the lie of what the Second Amendment actually says, which, by the way, I forget the name, but a former Chief Justice, the former Chief Justice of the Supreme Court, I think it was Warren, said that what you're saying, the Second Amendment, that's not what it says. It does not allow for unending access to guns, any type of gun, high-capacity magazines. That's not what it allows.
Yep.
Anyway, Steve, I was just going on a long monologue, but I showed the shooting.
Thanks.
I don't know. Maybe we disagree on this. I agree with the sentiment we spoke about last time. We got to get to the underlying root, but that's going to take a while because to get to the underlying economic pressures, that could take 20 years to overturn this corrupt system. So in the short term, I say we need to do something about the guns, because right now it's just clockwork. It's just going to, it used to be every kind of month. Now it's happening every few days, some bigger, some small, but at the bare minimum, shootings everywhere.
Well, see, the very legitimate pushback on gun control is that it was typically used against black and brown people. Anytime you look at whether or not black and brown people should be armed, you see people suddenly willing to make exceptions for them. But ultimately now we know for a fact that the Second Amendment has been completely and utterly bastardized. This isn't a matter of your constitutional freedom. What they have done is they've allowed you to become your own arsenal. There is no such thing in the Second Amendment that talks about that. Anybody that says that, it's just straight up either libertarian or lying, or both, because you get the point. Point I'm making here is we have to do something, but the Congress that we've got in front of us, the Senate that we have in front of us, the president that we have in front of us, all the money that's flowing through the system, they're all against this. I mean, they may say something, but there's no movement whatsoever to fix the finances, to fix the economics, to fix the mental health, to fix the health care, to fix the Second Amendment, quite frankly. And if you conflate the First Amendment, which is protection from the government stopping your free speech and creating laws against your free speech, if it's not private groups making rules within their boundaries, it's that the government can't do this to you. The Second Amendment has been equally bastardized, and they've turned this into basically become your own gun show, your own roving gun show. And I think that honestly, this is a matter where we don't have a Supreme Court that's going to work with us. We don't have a Congress that's going to work with us. We don't have a president that's going to work with us. And the vast majority of people have been propagandized. So it's going to require, like you said, Jordan, we're not voting our way out of this. And if we're not voting our way out of gun issues, we're not voting our way out of a climate crisis either. We're not voting our way out of any. So all the various things that we need to do are going to be brought to bear by us literally doing an OWS 2.0 and taking to the streets and saying enough's enough. Okay, I'm not against taking away people's guns. I'm against this free-for-all that we've got going on. And this free-for-all that we have going on is not the Second Amendment. It's once again a bastardized right-wing position that has enabled this. So I always say be careful what we ask for, because they use whatever they use over here against the right wing, they turn around and use the same thing against the left wing shortly thereafter, and it just becomes more civil liberties eroded. This is not about civil liberties. The fact of the matter is that weapons, guns of any variety, I'm not going to call them assault weapons. I'm not going to talk about magazines and clips. I'm not qualified to be an arms, expert here. I'm here to just simply say, as a parent, and you're right, your wife being afraid to be in this country is exactly right. But this country is, because it's rotting from the top down. The bottom is being left to be, to fend for itself. And you're seeing the outcomes of that. So there's two things. Our top is not supporting us, and there's no way you're getting legislation through that will fundamentally change anything. Right. So I think it's very clear that what you said was exactly the correct response. Without a very, very robust movement in the streets, taking back our power via becoming ungovernable by direct action, et cetera, it's the only way any of this is going to change, period.
And by the way, most of the issues in this country, the wealthy are absolved. This was a pretty wealthy area. Highland Park in Illinois. It's about a half hour from Chicago. It's pretty wealthy.
Michael Jordan. Absolutely.
Yeah. So, I mean, with the guns, a wealthy wacko could go in and shoot up a private school. Who knows? Doesn't happen much. But in this case, people were just going to a parade. And that's the point. Just separate the talking points you've been fed. If you're a right-winger watching right now, if the headline triggered you, if you're a communist watching right now, just put all your thoughts out, right? Just think common sense for a second. Common sense, right? If you were sick or something, or your family was sick, okay, and there was a book with potions from the 1700s, and they said, well, this is actually, we have to adhere to this book. So you could only be treated with these potions for your modern day ailments. And this continues my terrible train of analogies, but you get the point. Okay. And you had to adhere to this book. You couldn't use modern technology or medicine. You couldn't look at the conditions on the ground. Now you could only adhere to a book of witchcraft for your medical. People would say that's crazy. And you want to tell me, the right wingers in this country, fed by, dearly departed Rush Limbaugh, Breitbart, Fox News, online, Tim Pool, whomever else. You want to tell me, oh, well, it's in the Constitution? No, it's not. The former Chief Justice, I think it was Warren, said, this is a lie. The Second Amendment doesn't say what these people say it's saying. And at the end of the day, if you want to be literal, because it was just the 4th of July, Steve, how do you got kids? How do you actually pursue happiness if you can't actually be safe? Sure, Anyone could die in a car accident. You know, you fall down a staircase, accidents. How do you pursue happiness if literally any day could be your last in this country? Just, I don't know, going to a parade, going to school. I mean, it's insane. And frankly, people are fooling themselves. You know, these democratic emails. They're fooling themselves if you think just getting a few more Democratic senators is going to do it. Because the Democratic Party, aside from its corruption, it structurally is weak. Remember, Obama in 2016, Steve, when McConnell blocked him from holding a judge, he crawled into a corner and didn't fight it because he was afraid if he fought it, it would activate the Republican base more in the election. That's partly why reports are coming out now that Biden doesn't want to go too far with action in response to Roe, in response to the gun massacres, because they're afraid that it could ignite the Republican base, like they need any more ignition. I mean, it's crazy. So at this point, we have a government that if it's arson, instead of actually being the fire department, they're getting some lawn chairs and just watching the flames. That's what we have.
Yeah. No, absolutely. And, you know, I think it's important. I see some of these comments in the chat here, and some of them I find to be unfortunate. But one of the things that I think is important,
as FDR once said, we welcome your hatred.
Yeah, pour it on, right? I think it's important to note, though, that historically speaking, you know, if you disarm the left, I mean, we have we don't have a balance in this country in any way, shape, or form, and I'm really cautious. So I'm sympathetic to those who are very much protective of the Second Amendment in the sense that they don't want to just see guns grabbed up. The flip side to that is that if you're remotely aware of history and you're remotely aware of the balance that's happening out there, I mean, we have an extremely well-armed right wing in this country. Yes, there are some lefties that are well-armed too, but the vast majority of the weaponry in this country is in the hands of conservatives who are highly reactionary. And this is part of their culture. It's part of their whole family, everything. It's part of the whole lifestyle, right? Most lefties, and I say most because I know that there are quite a few that do have guns, but most lefties are not big gun people. And that said, it makes it a distinctly partisan fight. Even though it's not partisan, you're asking to protect the people, including Republicans, but without understanding the way that the left is severely outmatched in every meaningful way. We're not only outmatched on the firepower, not that we're looking to have a civil war, use guns or anything like that, but just to make the point, we're severely outmatched there, but we're also severely outmatched in organizing. Everything from a constitutional convention. If you got your butt into a dander and wanted to have a constitutional convention, the right wing would be saying, can I help you? Can I open the door for you? Can I walk you through? Can I carry your bags? Let's get to the Constitutional Convention. They would drive you. They would chauffeur you. They'd let you be a house guest to get you to that Constitution because they've been planning it for 50 years. Okay. The left can't get out of their own way. They're too busy being Coolio trolls, stuff, fighting with each other, sniping at each other. These guys, they mean business. So there's a whole lot more to this that you've got to realize. Whether or not you want this or not, it's not really the point. The issue is that this is reality. We have got more guns in the streets than ever before, and they are not owned equally. They're owned by people that are fundamentally not for the things that most of us as progressives are for. So with that in mind, this is a very, very dangerous situation you have, and how you handle it, how you get Congress to act on it, how we go from not having a civil war, how we prevent even more reactionary right-wing violence. I mean, it's a bit scary. So I think it's important to really be sober in the assessment of what we're up against. It's good to have a great take. It's good to punch hard. It's good to focus and go after it. But it's important to realize that the people that we're going after, we're just finally realized. Some people are just finally realizing some of this stuff. These folks, I mean, literally, I live in Pennsylvania. I know people that have underground bunkers, okay, that have guns down the sides. It literally, their floorboards, they cut part of their floor out. They lift it up, and inside their floorboards are guns and guns and guns and ammo and tons of stuff. Their attics are strewn. Their walls have cutouts. They have fake walls where they hide these things. We are not talking about just a couple guns here and there, a couple AR-15s with some mods. We're talking about people that genuinely are loaded to the gills, expecting the next civil war. So it's just something to keep in mind as we go through this. What we ask for, what we demand, we're demanding of a Congress that has no intention of taking action. And the more we fan those fears, the more we have to be prepared for the consequences. And I think it's important to take that into consideration while we watch kids getting killed and we watch all this other shit happen. And every other day there's another mass shooting. It's important to understand also that every time the cops go after these types of things, what happens? Because that's who's going to go after the guns. So what happens when a cop goes after somebody that might be armed? We got another death by cop. This is another factor. And all of you don't want to martyr these right-wing Nazis that are jackbooted and ready to go. I mean, this is a very serious dynamic, and you have to look at it end to end. I don't know how you fix it because our Congress will not act on it. And we literally can't organize our way out of a paper bag right now. Sadly, we're too divided. We got too many ideas, too many split allegiances. These guys, they got one direction and one direction only, and that's right wing, and they're there. Boom, gone. Right. So I don't see how you get away from that. Well, I don't.
I'll say a few things before we move on to the president telling us high gas prices will exist as long as it takes. Number one, you can't rent a car in this country unless you're 25. But right now you can get a gun at 18. That's fucking insane. Not just a gun, any gun. Let me repeat. You cannot rent a car until you're 25. But anybody could get a gun or a bazooka gun or name your pick. Even they could get it legally, or they could get it at gun shows, internet sales, person to person, whatever. Number two, to the conservatives, to the people triggered in the chat, let me ask you a question. Based on your bastardized reading of the Second Amendment, which it doesn't say or allow what you say it does, right? God forbid if your daughter, if your son gets killed at a parade, a school, movie theater, your mom, your sister, whatever, somebody close to you gets killed. You're gonna cite the Second Amendment to me? You're gonna say, well, you know, I loved her. We loved our name your fallen, but Second Amendment. No, you wouldn't. Because unfortunately in this country, most of the time, whether it's conservatives, neoliberals, libertarians, they don't give a fuck unless it happens to them.
Can we bring up this guy's comment? His name is Jebediah Reed or Jeb Reed. Go ahead and pull up old Jeb Reed. This guy's completely irresponsible. You don't know anything about the right. Actually, I'm willing to bet both of these guys are glowies. I don't know what a glowy is, but let me just tell you. Actually, I don't want to tell you, Jordan.
Well, you were a Bushy. You were on the right. So.
I was a Reaganite. I was a W. I was a senior. I was a Bob Dole. I was a WW. I was a Ron Paul. I was a John McCain. My conversion happened in 2012 timeframe, right? I mean, I just want to be crystal clear here. This asshole, and let's just be fair. You're an asshole, Jeb. Sorry. An asshole like this that says something less than human. This guy is completely irresponsible. You know anything about the right? Actually, I'm willing to bet both of these guys are glowies. Okay.
Well, if you want, if you want, Jeb, go watch our 4th of July video, because I've had more interviews with the right than you would know. But go ahead.
Yeah, these guys crack me up. It's beyond any kind of joke here. I literally came from the right. My conversion was from being a radical right-wing Republican / libertarian. I came from that world. I actually campaigned for Ron Paul. I'm not proud of it. I did it, though. Okay, I actually campaigned for W. I've got pictures of me wearing my W. Cheney shirt. I mean, I know the right wing. I grew up in I live in a right wing area. I'm the friendly neighborhood communist to these guys now. Okay. So every time I see somebody make just a dipshit comment like that, I just realize how bad off this nation is that they exist with those kind of comments, because we are screwed. If you jump to the conclusion that I don't know anything about the right, etc., you see something like that, okay? And it just completely is intended to mitigate anything else that was said. Had nothing to do with the words, the fact that the fact that I have family that lives this way. I mean, the idea that people think that they could just say shit like that is revolting. It's repulsive. You know, it's absolutely ridiculous.
Welcome to the
internet.
internet. But at the end of the day, and then we'll move on. We're going to have to broaden this out from guns, because there's a lot of things killing us. Obviously, the guns are killing us right now. And again, 7 people dead. I think 38 were wounded. Not to mention the living. You imagine being a child at a parade, all these gunshots. That's not something you just get over. It's going to be a lot of kids permanently scarred that were at this parade. But we're going to need something. I know people, the press, the parties, Democrats, Republicans are trying to get you in voting mindset. And you do what you want. I don't tell people not to vote or who to vote for. But I'm telling you right now, this has been going on. Basically, let's start at Columbine. It's not going to change with voting. You're talking 30 years now of mass shootings. Okay. We could talk about the underlying rot and what's driving people. But I would tell you something. Let's be clear. I ain't blaming Trump. Colin, if you have it, this guy was a Trump supporter. Okay. He had a Trump flag on. There was video of him at a Trump motorcade. I'm not blaming Trump, but the bottom line is hate crimes went up over the last 5 years as politics became not just sports, but blood sport. And you had presidents and right wingers basically saying, fight. Well, when you have socially isolated people, when you have, whether it's depression, anxiety, bipolar, whatever it is, bullied, and then you have politicians that they're admiring or networks that they watch. It's kind of like the light. It's the flame.
Mm-hmm.
And that's not just, by the way, it's mostly coming from the right, but there is a sickness in this country, but it's also during the Second Amendment times, there wasn't 24/7 media inflaming everything. So it's just, I don't really have any words. Frankly, Steve, half the time, I don't know when we're talking about guns if I'm going to have to break in with another mass shooting.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. It's ridiculous. I mean, I can't stand being brought on to talk about guns, quite frankly, because you don't think when you talk about this stuff, right? I'm a father, and because of my experience with not only economics, but understanding the struggle of losing everything and going through that process and watching it happen in real time, that conversion, you go from a very, very distant spot somewhere radically different, fundamentally changes everything, all the connecting points, all the logic that you thought through, everything. You start reconnecting those synapses as you go. And honestly, unless you've traveled through this space, it's hard to understand what people are thinking. It's hard to understand what folks that have been in those situations are thinking. And, coming from that space, I try to leverage that history, not because I'm proud of it. I'm not proud of it in any way, shape, or form, but I'm very, very much the poster child for people can change. That's the point, right? And it's not just that people can change, it's that once you understand the economic underpinning that's creating so much of the chaos in this country and the oppression of the capital class, once you really understand that, you can literally change. I guarantee you, right wingers will change when they understand these things said in terms that they understand. So I'm down with the idea that we got to learn them, we got to know them, we got to be able to understand where they're coming from. But a lot of this stuff is not new. None of this stuff is new. These are individuals who are genuinely reactionary in general. Like literally, they come from a position of fear. They start from a fear base. They fear those that are different than them. That's why you see all these laws coming about trying to isolate people that are different than them. That's why you see the rabid attacks on transsexual people. That's why you see the rabid and the overly protectiveness of the police while constantly pinpointing every wrongdoing on the people at the bottom. This is a standard right-wing thinking, and they're there to protect themselves, not from the cops. They're there to protect themselves from the poor people down there, because that is the wiring that goes on. They think that the enemy is in the bottom. They don't realize the enemy is the oppressor at the top. top. And until you flip that dynamic, all these shootings, these people, they're waiting there, ready to protect the police, ready to protect their castle, ready to protect their private property. And this is a mindset. I'm telling you, it doesn't take much to get through this conversation with an individual that's of this mindset. They believe genuinely that it's my property, my right. You step on my property, you die. You could die, no problem. So I just think that there's a fundamental understanding of the way the right wing is in this country, not just in this country, but in general. It's the reactionary, it's the fear-based, it's I don't want anything to change. And then when things start changing, the reason why something goes wrong, see, they did it. See, it's a liberal. See, hey, look, it's lefty. See, it's communism. See, it's socialism. See, it's this reactionary belief system that leads them to want to stack those guns up because they believe that the commies are coming for their guns. If you look, the Bolsheviks had guns. It certainly they weren't unarmed. So I don't know why they think the communists are suddenly about disarming people. It's kind of hilarious in its own right. But this is what we're dealing with. You've got right-wing people that actually believe that the enemy is the poor person trying to eat, that might take their food, that might steal an ear of corn from their garden or whatever. I mean, it's just getting people to recognize the way cultural behavior is and understanding where the oppression comes from. Who's the bad guy here? And it's certainly not the poor that are just trying to make ends meet and that get arrested because they have no meaningful way to sustain themselves. These people that are out there carrying these guns are trying to protect themselves from these people. They're not out there protecting themselves from the police. They fucking believe in the police. They're cuddling the police. They're spooning the police. They're out there focused on the poor guy that they think is going to get over on them, or in worst cases might steal their wife from them because they can't stand the idea of a black guy getting their wife. I mean, it's that pathetic. It really is.
On that note, smash that like button, share this live stream, thumbs up right under the video. We got almost 400 watching, but only 220 have liked. Press that like button. Steve, we got to move on. If you weren't literally getting shot this weekend, celebrating 4th of July, which, by the way, is the United Corporations of America Day. That's my celebration. And keep those super chats coming. We'll read them at the end. You were really getting screwed, but hot dog prices were up. But to have a barbecue, prices through the roof. And, of course, gas if you're driving long distances. To celebrate. Let's hear what Biden said at the end of last week when asked, are we just supposed to expect high gas prices indefinitely in the context of Russia and Ukraine?
And just today, Snake Island is now taken over by the Ukrainians. So we are going to stick with Ukraine, and all of the alliance are going to stick with Ukraine as long as it takes to, in fact, make sure that they are not defeated by Ukraine. I mean, excuse me, in Ukraine by Russia.
First of all, Steve, you and I have talked about this a lot. The high gas prices are not primarily because Russia invaded Ukraine. Obviously, we feel for the people of Ukraine. I'm all for sending more, humanitarian aid. Refugees. Let's also take in refugees from Syria, Yemen, where countries where people are brown. We don't like to do that often. Afghanistan. But what's amazing to me is, I've always thought the Democratic Party is just run by a bunch of out of touch idiots. But it's almost like they're trying to lose. He genuinely is stating, as long as it takes, in the context of high gas prices. Other things to save democracies or stop Russia, even though, frankly, at this point, it's pretty clear we're using Ukraine as proxy to continue to go after Russia. I mean, America could have been leading the charge to diplomatically end this. That doesn't mean you celebrate Russia getting what it wants, but you try to preserve life and you try to put an end to this. But that's not it. So Biden said, as long as it takes. Then Federal Reserve Chair Jerome Powell, which not to bore you or have your eyes glaze over, but the Fed is just as responsible as the executive branch for inaction here or the wrong action. Apparently, he is admitting he doesn't understand or didn't understand what really was driving inflation. Let's take a look.
One way to say it would be, I think we now understand better how little we understand about inflation.
That's not very reassuring.
No, honestly, this was unpredicted. I was looking at our at the time of our June meeting 1 year ago, of the 35 people who file with a survey of professional forecasters, 34 of them had inflation below 4% for last year. And of course, it was way above 4%.
So that's our Federal Reserve chair. And let me, trip down memory lane. I hate to give Elizabeth Warren credit because I can't stand her, but she did have a good moment here. Apparently, he says they don't understand. We don't understand inflation, but apparently here he understood capitalism. Let's take a look.
Past year, we know that prices have risen because of supply chain problems, unexpected shifts in the demand for goods, and even higher labor costs. But if corporations were simply passing along these costs in highly competitive markets, would the company's profit margins have changed much?
So many things affect those that calculation. In principle, you could be right, but
well, it's very much not what we're seeing right now. Today, nearly 2 out of 3 of the biggest publicly traded corporations in the country are reporting fatter profit margins than they reported before the pandemic, which doesn't sound like they're just passing along costs. So let me ask you, does that increase in profit margins combined with greater market concentration in industry after industry suggest to you that some corporations may be passing along increased costs and at the same time charging more on top of that to fatten their profit margins?
that could be right. It could also just be, though, that demand is incredibly strong, and that they're raising prices because they can.
Well, that's the point. They're raising prices because they can, and they're not being competed down.
I give you the floor. He apparently doesn't understand it. They were wrong about inflation, or we understand, we don't understand. But in that moment, he understood one of the drivers of inflation is corporations doing whatever they want.
So I want to be clear about this. Inflation is not a one thing fits all kind of proposal, period. So if you've got an issue with supply chains, okay, you've got to deal with why do you have gaps in the supply chain? Is it because you are doing business in countries that are shut down and they can't get the supplies to you? That's a possible supply chain. It's an issue of which provider is giving you that service. Is it an issue of there is too much demand for a product that you don't have nearly enough supplies for? Okay, then you would increase production. Is it an issue of a monopolist that doesn't have any competition? If so, you need competition. Is it an issue of the costs of goods within your supply chain have gone up that raise the cost of production? If that's the case, then you need to look at alternative ways of doing this, or possibly in terms of subsidization, from the government, et cetera. There's a bunch of ways of handling each of these, and there's a bunch of causes. So when you ask, well, how do you fix inflation? The answer has got to be, it depends. What we're seeing, and I think Elizabeth Warren, to her credit, pointed out a few very important things. Number one is that there is no automatic pricing tool that jacks prices up according to how much money is printed, or there's no amount of automated computer that jacks prices up based on whatever. No, it's actually people, companies making decisions to set their prices. And if you've got your MBA, you know the 4 P's of marketing: price, product, placement, and I can't remember the last one. But the bottom line is that you've got 4 P's marketing, right? And they set their price. They find the sweet spot for their price. A Louis Vuitton handbag, for example, doesn't cost thousands of dollars to make. It probably costs tens of dollars to make. But because they've made it exclusive, they've been able to set the price in thousands of dollars, and bougie people go out and buy Louis Vuitton handbags. Flip side is that if you were looking at just the return on investment that businesses they select a target. They select a target for what projects they take on. If this doesn't give me a 2% or 5% or a 10% profit over 2 years, it's not a project I'm going to do. If it does, they have all these different measures. And she was right when she pointed out to Powell, and Powell stumbling all over his tongue was hilarious. But she was right in the sense that corporations have made a decision to raise prices. This is not some act of God. God doesn't sit there and make the prices go up. That's some human being saying, oh, okay, let's adjust this price up so that we can get a targeted 5% return on investment based on selling X number of units. But in the case of the oil crisis, if you will, the gas shortage, Russia produced let's just say 6% of the total gas that we use, or, that we as the United States use. That's it. The only place, because the United States had gotten to its max production as well as the others, and because pricing is pretty much a year out, they forward price this stuff, okay? Because of that, there's only one producer that can really fill that void, and that void is being filled by Saudi Arabia. Saudi Arabia, however, has chosen to tick that price up, okay? Now, prices have come down like just a teeny bit, but I don't know, I can't even answer the why behind that other than peaking. Perhaps maybe they found out that people just can't buy gas at that price. I don't know. But the ultimate deal here is that Saudi Arabia has a monopoly on that 6% delta. Okay. And in that 6% delta, they are driving that price for that last remaining bit that we need. They're driving that price up. And if you go back a couple Let's Get Ready to Grumbles ago, where I had Warren Mosler on, he explains this in great detail. So please go check out the Warren Mosler Let's Get Ready to Grumble here on Status Coup. But that right there is the story with inflation. There is multiple ways that you have to look at inflation. It's not printing money. Money printing has no impact whatsoever on the guy in the smoky room raising prices. So stop saying it. It's just stupid. It's a Milton Friedman libertarian lie. Don't say it. It's not true. This Cantillon effect is another right-wing libertarian bullshit thing where they try to point to the Cantillon effect, which is about printing money. But that's not how the system works. It's another lie. It's a lie that we spoon feed each other. It's a comfortable lie. It's not real. It's bullshit. So just remember that out of all the stuff we're talking about here, the vast majority of it is some dude that literally has a pen and ups the price. We're not talking about something that has to happen. And if you look, I think it was a month or two ago that The Guardian put out a great piece that described the massive amount of profit these folks have made over the pandemic, claiming that they're covering for this inflation cost. The inflation cost is them, their fat finger writing that shit down and jacking the price up. It is not a feature of printing money, which is a lie. So that's my take on that.
Real quick, we're about to go to another guest on a horrendous topic, but at the end of the day, I've never been a fatalist. I try to be optimistic, because if we're all just going to roll up in fetal position, what the fuck is the point? If we want to do that, just go get some weed and, watch Wayne's World or something, which, you could do that anyway, even if you are fighting for change. But bottom line, this inflation is driven. It's kind of like the back end, the full circle of a 40-year bank robbery that is our country. Colin, if you have the chart, we have a out of control capitalist system. I give you the PPP program. There's where your money went over the last 40 years. That's a bank robbery. It's our money. It's called corporate socialism, and it's gone to these people who are price gouging at the pump, in the grocery store, pretty much everywhere. The electric companies, and until it goes back to what we talked about, Steve, at the beginning, we're not going to vote our way out of this. That doesn't mean I'm not telling you not to vote. Vote for whoever you want. If you want to vote, great. If you don't vote. But we're going to have to do something. We're going to have to do something different to get a different result. And I firmly believe that the times we've gotten any structural change in this country is when power was threatened economically. FDR didn't walk in, and he wasn't like some, darling progressive at heart. The unions pressured him and drove him to be more progressive and to meet the moment of the Great Depression. That was the unions. So at this point, guns, the lack of a coherent pandemic response, black men continuing to be assassinated, minimum wage is still $7.25. We don't have health care despite a pandemic. We need some type of Occupy Wall Street 2.0 outside the Capitol, outside the White House, and people need to stay. People need to stay. And we need a major mutual aid effort with that, because obviously people can't just indefinitely protest if they can't pay their bills.
Jordan, we're simpatico, brother. This is I've never felt more simpatico than right there. That last bit you just said is right on with you, brother.
Maybe next time we'll do a full hour on what this would look like and how we could do it. All right. I don't want to keep my guests waiting. June 27th, there was another. I mean, there's just no words. Before we get started, if people haven't seen it, trigger warning. This is what police did during a car chase after Jayland Walker, who was 25, got out of his car and ran as police were chasing him. Here's what they did. They shot 90 rounds. They shot him 60 times. A lot of those shots were when he was already on the ground. He was unarmed. And of course, the police have said, well, he turned around and we thought he was, about to shoot at us. They claim that during the car chase, he shot at them. The family disputes that. I haven't seen any evidence that that's true. Kenneth, I know this isn't the first time Akron has had to deal with out-of-control police. I should say there were at least 8 or 9 police officers there shooting at him. This was over originally a traffic stop. Can you tell us what's been going on? Because I know you've been very active in protests as well as, trying to get people out of jail.
Yeah, I'm at a jail support right now. I want to thank you for using my first and last name, even though I got my face covered and I changed my name on the chat. Maybe I should have text messaged you and let you know that, but it is
My
what it is.
My bad.
We're currently at a jail support right now. Serve the people today. We personally bonded out like 5 to 6 people, I believe, last time I checked the numbers. There were like probably 20 other people of the 50 odd number protesters that were arrested that bonded out before that. So we're going to continue for the next couple of days to get everyone out that we can. So that's where I'm at right now. But first of all, I mean, I don't know if you, I don't even know how to preface it. I mean, since I've been watching most of the show, I don't know. It's just you didn't bring up the fact that the shooter from the 4th of July was picked up. Of course, he was picked up peacefully.
Yeah.
At a very, very peaceful traffic stop, even though he had just murdered 6 people, shot others. Broad daylight, middle of a nice area. And of course, he is a white male, and he was picked up peacefully. Now, Jayland, on the other hand, who had no record, they don't show the traffic stop in the video. So we're yet to see the actual reason why they pulled him over, the actual infraction for which he was even the chase began for. He was shot 64 times. It was over 90 odd rounds found on the scene. So, you talk about rotten America. The fear of the black body, for one, is one of the most major issues. It's a fear-based country. Every system that we have, it has racial bias. All of it's built on fear and control. I mean, of course it needs to be overhauled. I mean, what the fuck? Like it makes no. If we seen the video, it makes absolutely no sense. And then after that, the video doesn't show you that they handcuffed the body. They
Right.
handcuffed the body like he was going to get up after being shot 64 odd times.
I think, yeah,
It's
I'm glad you brought that up. I should have said that. It's really insane if you want to believe the police that what they're doing is trying to protect the public, that you would gently handcuff somebody that just shot from atop a building at a parade and shot at least 40 people, but you would have 8 officers shooting 90 rounds at someone running away. That's not just fear, that's clearly racism. There's no other explanation for it in my view. And I've covered a lot of these protests around the country. Even if for argument's sake, which I don't see any evidence that he did try to shoot at them, but even if you saw him pulling for something that you thought was a gun, there's zero explanation for why 8 officers would be shooting that many times. Can you talk about just the sheer amount of times they shot? It kind of reminds me of what happened with Laquan McDonald in Chicago, 16 shots while he was already on the ground pretty much right away.
Exactly. I mean, it's just pure hatred. It's hatred. I mean, like how you could abandon all humanity and fire 90 plus rounds out of human body, especially one where, I mean, the majority of the shots had hit him. He was already on the ground. I mean, nothing about it makes sense. Nothing about the fact that these officers can go on paid leave after you've seen the video makes sense. Nothing about it makes sense. Nothing about it makes sense. It's dehumane. There was absolutely no humanity to them. That was not a human being. It was not in any way, shape, or form. He was a black individual. He was a black body.
I want to show some of the protest footage because the police have also been firing tear gas and the usual weapons at protesters. Colin, if we could play that. And that's just one. There's a lot of footage out there of them firing tear gas and other things. I know you've been out at the protest. Could you talk about what the protesters have been dealing with by the police?
I mean, it's a lot, man. It's a lot. I mean, to me, I don't know. I don't want to. I can't prove for a fact, but I don't want to. But I know for a fact that once we got from in front of the police station and we got down to Main Street, once they continued to press us out, that there were trash cans set up that have never been there before, full of cardboard to the brim. There's no factory in downtown on Main Street. There's nowhere that will produce 3 trash cans, 3 dumpsters full of cardboard. I mean, clearly they wanted things to escalate. It was part of their plan. They set that there because that's what they wanted. Once they wanted to push us down to Main Street, and once they pushed us down there, they wanted it to escalate so that they could exert more force and it could become what it is. I mean, to me, all of it is purpose. The fact that we can be out here protesting for Jayland Walker, somebody that the cops fired over 90 rounds at, and while we're protesting, we have police officers laughing in our faces, smirking and smiling, being disrespectful. I mean, it shows you the cultural hatred, the culture of hatred that is the police department.
And lastly, this doesn't happen in a vacuum. Akron and Cleveland are two of the poorest cities in America. Akron, I know there's been a lot of evictions happening. There's homeless encampments. Can you kind of talk about just what you guys have been dealing with outside of this in terms of the economic problems there?
I mean, well, Akron, Ohio has the highest eviction rate in the state of Ohio. So that lets you know that the number is constantly rising. With Serve the People, we do try and do a lot with our homeless because, I mean, that is where a lot of the need lies. As far as trying to serve and provide resources, try and provide shelter of any sort we can when we can. I mean, harm prevention. I mean, you name it, we try and help them as much as we can. And I mean, but then when you have the city doing things like accusing the people who are allowing them to have encampments on their land, they then accuse the people of running a sex trafficking ring. When we are at these homeless encampments, we are checking in with the people. We are asking them questions. We are trying to see where people are going, things of that nature. But I mean, it's all part of the capitalist machine, I guess. You know, if it doesn't make money, it doesn't make sense. So,
What could people,
homeless people make no sense.
what could people do that aren't in Akron right now to support you guys and your protest efforts? What do you need?
Our social media is Serve the People Akron. You can find us on Facebook, Instagram. Also, Comrade in Ohio. I know you guys have a lot of contact with him. You can always get information there, support that. On our Instagram, you will see our link tree. Right now, the biggest thing that we're doing is this bell support. And if you wanted to donate to that, that would be $, Akron Bell Fund on CashApp. But once again, you can find any of our anything you wanted to donate, any support you wanted to offer. You can get all that information on our link tree at any of our social medias.
I'll hook up with you after this to get the links, and we'll put that in the description. Thank you for joining. I appreciate it.
All right, thank you for your concern and just giving us a platform. Appreciate that.
Absolutely. Take care. So that was a activist who's been very active in the protests. I mean, I don't care what somebody does. And again, there's really, as far as I can tell, there's no evidence that Jayland Walker shot at police. But let's say he did. 90 rounds shooting at him while he's already down, handcuffing him while he's lifeless. I've been saying this for years. We need a real surge of psychologists to go into police departments and from head to toe psychological evaluations of every police officer in this country, including racial disposition and racial bias. If you did that and they're actually serious about it, I'd venture to guess you might have 60 to 70% of police people having to turn in their badges. Seriously. What you're seeing, what that is, those are police officers who literally think they're a SEAL team in war, shooting at, the enemy. And absolutely there's a racial component. I'm glad he brought that up because this mass shooter in Highland Park, he wasn't shot at 60 times. He was gently arrested. Go figure. Go figure. I would like to know if that was a black man firing from above a building at innocent parade goers, what the response would have been. Before I read some Steve had to go. So as always, make sure to subscribe to Real Progressives on YouTube. That's Real Progress in Action. Real Progress in Action. That's Steve's YouTube channel. And make sure also to check him out. Rogue Scholar. The Rogue Scholar airs on YouTube, on his YouTube channel, Monday, Wednesday, and Friday at noon Eastern. So support Steve and Real Progressives if you can. A little announcement here at Status Coup. Colin, if you have the graphic. Coming in the fall. Don't know exactly when, but I don't know. Figure around Halloween, Thanksgiving. Coming in the fall. I'll be taking some time off. I don't know how long it will be. Could be a month, could be a few months. I, for a long, long time, have wanted to work on a book and or a documentary on the Flint water crisis and cover-up. Nothing to announce yet, but I'm having some discussions behind the scenes on both of those things, on writing a book or doing a documentary. For those of you that know about either, it's really not something you could do while juggling daily live streams and traveling for, the news of the things we cover. I would need to dedicate time to it. So come, I don't know when, but it will probably be in the fall, sometime around October, November. I'll be taking some time off. That's obviously a good thing, for me to do that, while I still can. And I think it needs to be out there, either a book or a documentary, or maybe even both. Who knows? We do have another major Flint story coming out soon. So stay tuned for that. I have more bombshell information on the cover-up, which kind of, sucks that it got out after charges were dismissed against Governor Snyder. But we're still going to keep reporting on the cover-up, in my view, the biggest cover-up of the 21st century, which is the Flint water cover-up. So with that said, without knowing exactly when I'll be taking off, probably in the fall, give or take October, November, we need somebody to keep the lights on, or more than one somebody to keep the lights on. So right now, kind of inviting folks to reach out. We are not, to be clear, I'm not looking for kind of activists to live stream on the channel, or activists to report on the ground. No disrespect to activists, but we're looking for someone or more than one person with some journalistic experience to both live stream and keep Status Coup going, and or go out and report. So cover trips on the ground, because we're not going to stop just because, I'll be out for a little while. So we have obviously Lewis, who's been doing some reporting for us. He'll probably fill in for me at times, but we're really looking for somebody that could, host a live stream, draw eyeballs and bring people in, on a daily basis for a couple months, or someone who can go out and travel in the field. Obviously, you'd be paid for both. We're not, this isn't a volunteer thing. We pay you, clearly. So yeah, if you have journalistic experience, even if you don't have a ton of journalistic experience, but you have some experience in your community, whether it's interviewing people, if you have some on-air experience, I'm open to those who don't. But what I'm not going to do, again, no disrespect to activists, but you have to kind of keep the line between journalism and activism clear. I'm not going to have people who are like involved in organizing events and protests and things like that to then come on and report on the things they're involved with. That's not proper or ethical journalistically. And it might not be one person, it might be kind of a committee of people. We might have people that have some journalistic experience that we could send out on the ground and cover things for small, just a day shoot, like a protest, or for a week. If there's a particular story, we could send somebody out, and we might have a different person or people do the live stream. So we're kind of open right now to a mix of everything. But I people have always asked me, when are you going to write a book? And I've always said, well, you want to find me at the time? I'm in when you're doing daily live streams and planning on the ground trips and going on the ground trips. I guess Dick Brada is out of the question. Yeah, definitely. Planning on the ground trips, working on investigative reporting. When you're writing a book, you got to be focused. And it's, from what I hear, I mean, a 12, 13-hour day just working on your outline and then your chapters and writing and then edits, writing, revisions, dealing with a book editor. And obviously a documentary, I'd have to be traveling for that to shoot the documentaries. So right now there's a lot of things kind of in flux, but I wanted to announce this early in July because we're not going to just get this done in a week. We want, and spread the word too. Spread the word to maybe there's some local independent journalists, maybe there's some people even who work maybe for the local news outlets, but are slowly dying and their soul is dying working for local corporate news outlets. I can't offer anybody like a full-time job with benefits. We're not at that capacity yet. But obviously, most of our roles are freelance, but I can offer you an opportunity. And we just want to keep the lights on at Status Coup. We want to keep growing. And I think overall it's important, and I've always felt this way, it's important that Status Coup is not only me. It's important that I am not the only face of Status Coup. I ain't getting any younger, and I can't be the only one. It's healthy and beneficial to grow Status Coup with other faces, with other voices. So, in a nutshell, we are looking for either possibly both, maybe commentators who can kind of mix in some reporting, or reporters, but who could do both, kind of reporting and hosting live streams, covering news of the day. Got to have some personality. I don't want people, that are watching paint dry, have some righteous anger and indignation that the Status Coup audience loves and expects from us. So that's the deal. Definitely. If you're interested, again, no disrespect, but if you're basically an activist, I don't have time to teach people journalism. I could take people that don't have a lot of journalistic experience and make them better. But in my experience, most of the time, it's very, very difficult to turn an activist into a journalist, if that makes sense. And I think you have to have some lines. Now, as a journalist, you could certainly have an opinion, but too many times we've had kind of people that we've tried freelance, not bad people, but just couldn't kind of turn off their activist hat. So we are looking for people that have a little bit of experience. If you don't have a lot of experience, we could work with that. But most importantly, we're looking to keep the channel what it is. So, obviously we want people that share our values, are progressive minded, are not like team Democrat or team Republican, and can travel, and can cover stories, breaking, in a breaking news circumstance, can go on the ground, if we need you right away, if the story is big enough. So definitely email us, info@statuscoup.com, info@statuscoup.com. If you have some journalism experience, if you don't, but you think that you're qualified for other reasons, feel free to reach out. I'm not excluding people that have any political experience. For example, we had on John Russell, who is in Ohio a couple of weeks ago, and he worked on Elizabeth Warren's campaign, which I'm not in love with, but he kind of saw the light and came back to Bernie. So he kind of does some activisty stuff, but I spoke with him possibly about doing some journalistic stuff for us. So, if you have if you've been more involved in activism and politics, I'm not disqualifying you, but if you're going to be doing this for us, there's no activism at the same time. That's kind of our roads to the rules there. But I prefer people that have some on-air experience or some journalistic experience. So feel free to email at info@statuscoup.com. If you have links to stuff you've done on air or podcasts or whatever, written articles. But obviously this is a video platform, so we're looking more for people with on-air experience. So yeah, that's the deal. Email us info@statuscoup.com. Look forward to, talking to some good people and hopefully finding a fit. It might be one person or it might be more than one person. And I don't know how long it will be for. It just depends what projects I line up in the fall. All right. Big Dumb Animal, $10. Missing the show live due to traveling, but sending some green love for the consistently great work at the coup. Thank you, Big Dumb Animal. Nick Thompson, $5. I'm a longtime supporter and recent reality TV personality. I'm shooting a podcast. Jordan, would love to have you on. Check your Insta DM. Which Insta? I don't go on Insta that much. Are you talking about Status Coup's Instagram? I will check Status Coup's. I guess I'll check mine, but I never really use my personal Instagram. But I'll check. Thank you for the super chat. John Ramsey, $10. Thank you, John. UEFA3, $5. 40 years of horrible presidents and lack of people fighting for their rights lead to the MAGA morons and the la-la land neoliberals. I couldn't have said it better, frankly. Great point. Peace Walker, $5. Glowies means federal agents. Imagine thinking Jordan and Grum are feds. Somebody said I was a fed? Wow, what a fucking moron. Double K, $49.99. Thank you as always, Double K. Appreciate it. Jeb Reed, $19.99. Even though I disagree on about 99.9% of both of your views, beliefs, and opinions, I will donate because disagreement is the path to the solution, not hate, name calling, assumptions, projection, violence, destruction. Jeb, thank you for the super chat and thank you for that kind sentiment because I have been really fed up and disgusted with this growing trend online that if channels we watch, if they feed me one thing I don't like or I disagree with, unsubscribe. Or if they criticize one of my preferred YouTube hosts or journalists, unsubscribed. We should seek out to hear people we disagree with. Doesn't mean you have to listen to them and love them all the time, but this like snowflake echo chamber mentality of most of the people who consume internet these days is pretty unsettling. I mean, obviously watch what you want and don't watch what you don't. But too many times, if people disagree, we immediately go for their motives and call them sellouts and they're not genuine and they have they're acting in bad faith when maybe people just are complex and maybe not everybody agrees on every little thing. That doesn't mean you have to cancel them or unsubscribe. It just means people disagree. And maybe instead, unclench your fists, get out of your corners, and listen. So I don't really know what you disagree with per se, but I appreciate that kind sentiment. Larry, $4.99. Jordan, you've been killing it lately. I became a new member, $5 a month. I also love your guest. Everything he says is right. Stay pissed. Thank you, Larry. I appreciate it, which is a good reminder. Sign up as a Status Coup member. You could become a member for as low as $5 to $10 a month. This is how we grow. StatusCoup.com/join. StatusCoup.com/join. You can become a member for as low as $5 to $10 a month. And membership is what funds the next thing I'm going to tell you about, on the ground reporting. So roughly middle of the month, I'd like to take a reporting trip. Probably going to be through the Northeast/Midwest. Don't know exactly where, but roughly speaking, think Pennsylvania, Ohio, West Virginia, possibly North Carolina, possibly Kentucky. I don't know. Probably not all those states, but kind of zigzagging around the Northeast, Midwest to cover inflation. Obviously, I don't want to cover inflation from a economic perspective. I want to cover the pain people are experiencing. I want to speak with people who really are very close to ruin economically. I want to talk to people in the flesh. What are you having to sacrifice? What resources and necessities are you having to go without? Are you having to ration certain things? Are your children having to go without things? How is this affecting you? Depression, anxiety. Are you facing eviction? Are you facing homelessness? There's so many things. And we interview as many people as we can, but it's not the same thing as just getting out into the country and speaking in the flesh and showing people showing people what's going on. Because the media kind of covers the sticker shock of it all, but you don't really see people out on the ground speaking with the people. So these kind of road trips aren't easy because you don't want to just hit the road with nothing lined up. So if you live in the Northeast, if you live in the Midwest, if you live kind of, between the North and the South, and you have a story and would like to do an interview in person, email us, info@statuscoup.com. info@statuscoup.com. This will be kind of similar. We did 2 reporting road trips during the pandemic. We called one The Other Pandemic, and the other one I forget, but we spoke with people. And, there's a very thin line between economic struggles and societal and mental health and drug addiction. So don't be shy. And also don't be ashamed. If you're struggling, and a lot of people watching are, don't be ashamed and don't be shy. Reach out, because really what invigorates me and why I do this is to really give a microphone to people that won't get it elsewhere. And to be clear, going on these road trips, if we're lucky, we break even. So that's why it's so important to build our membership, because these kind of stories are not sexy. They don't go up in YouTube's algorithm. They usually get buried in YouTube's algorithm. So we need to grow our membership to be able to fund these trips. With this tour in particular, I'm also pretty sure that a good amount of the interviews would be featured on Breaking Points too, as part of our partnership. So definitely email us if you have a story. My Twitter DMs are open too, so you could email us at info@statuscoup.com, or you could send me a direct message on Twitter. And yeah, let's get going. This will probably be in the middle of the month. So you could email us info@statuscoup.com, info@statuscoup.com. If you have a story, we're probably sticking around the East Coast, because at this moment, I don't particularly want to go to an airport and have to waiting, for a day to fly with all these canceled flights. We were going to talk about Buttigieg today. We'll probably save it to tomorrow. And that disaster of a man, Pete Buttigieg, the transportation secretary. But we're probably going to do just good old fashioned reporting road trip. And as you know, gas prices are very high too. So if you can, sign up, statuscoup.com/join. It makes a huge difference. And I think we're going to do our monthly members call. What is it, Tuesday? Either later this week or next week. So we'll announce when the next members call is tomorrow. So thank you for watching. By the way, it's still kind of 4th of July week. So go to statuscoup.com/store and get your United Corporations of America shirt. statuscoup.com/store. Get your United Corporations of America tour shirt. Be patriotic, Status Coup style. Thank you, everybody, for watching. Thanks for the super chat. I'll see you tomorrow.